She had her back turned when I set the ring box next to the empty wine glass. She was still laughing with her friends, still basking in that attention, still playing the part of the clever, sarcastic bride-to-be. Everyone was smiling. Everyone but me. I wasn't supposed to be there anymore, not really. I had already disappeared from that room long before my body followed. No one tells you how loud silence can be when you're being humiliated. No one prepares you for the second-hand laughter, for being the only one in a crowd who understands the joke, because the joke is you. I didn't walk into that party expecting to end my engagement. I didn't even want to go. I had a mild headache. I hadn't eaten since lunch, and Fallon, my fiancée, insisted it would be a casual thing. Just friends, drinks, some light music. Nothing dramatic. I should have known better. She thrives on dramatic. The living room was packed, warm from too many bodies and too little space. Music hummed somewhere beneath the buzz of voices. The apartment was overly staged, flowers that didn't smell, candles that weren't lit, books that no one read. Just props. Everything that night felt like a stage play, and I was the under-rehearsed extra who forgot his lines. Then came the moment. Someone shouted, "Speech," and Fallon rose to her feet like a practice performer. I stood behind her, just to the left, holding a plate of untouched appetizers and pretending not to hate every second. She started with something sweet, a compliment about how relationships take work, how I'm the calm in her chaos. I wanted to believe it. I really did. Then her voice shifted. Playful. Teasing. Emery is a man of precision, she said, smirking. Like, he times how long it takes to boil pasta. He alphabetized our spice rack. He once rescheduled an argument so we could cool off and review our emotions later. Laughter. I mean, how could I not say yes? He practically sent me a PowerPoint titled Proposal Options Q3 Forecast. They roared. I stared at her. Everyone else saw a witty, confident woman sharing a light-hearted toast. I saw someone unraveling me publicly for sport. Then she added, but seriously, if I ever need someone to log my emotional breakdowns in Excel, I know who to call. The laughter felt colder now. Sharper. I placed the plate on a side table. My hands were damp. I reached into my pocket. I wasn't even sure why. I wasn't planning on giving her the ring that night. It wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right place. But something in me broke open. I walked up. No words. No theatrics. I took the box out and placed it on the table beside her. Right there, between a champagne flute and someone's crumpled napkin. The room went still. Fallon looked down. Confused. She reached for it, but I was already walking toward the door. What are you doing? She asked, voice high, nervous. I didn't turn around. Just said, consider this your final punchline. And I left. No screaming. No tears. Just a stunned party and a man walking into the night with hands shaking and heart racing. That should have been the worst of it. But it wasn't. The text started less than an hour later. Then came the screenshots. Then came the truth. I didn't go home that night. I drove. Nowhere in particular. Just kept moving, letting the lines on the road blur while my mind tried to make sense of what I had just done. There's something strange about ending something quietly. No explosion. No yelling. Just silence. And in that silence, your brain starts playing tricks. Was I overreacting? Did I misinterpret the joke? Was Fallon really trying to humiliate me? Or was she just being her usual funny self? Those doubts sat with me until my phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. At first, I didn't check. I figured it was her. Maybe she'd be angry. Maybe embarrassed. Maybe apologetic. But when I finally pulled over and looked, I realized the messages weren't from her. They were from people at the party. Her friends. The first was a photo of Fallon standing with two men I didn't know. She was laughing, head tilted back, drink in one hand, the other on one of their shoulders. The caption read, "Still think she's into you, man?" I scrolled down. The second was a short video. Less than 20 seconds. It had been taken while I was in the hallway, just moments after I placed the ring down. In it, Fallon picked up the box, held it up like it was some kind of oddity, and said, "Wow, he actually brought it?" I thought I made it clear we were waiting till after the Mexico trip. Guess he missed the memo. Someone in the background laughed and said, maybe he thought it was real. That one hit me harder than anything she said during the toast. Because it wasn't public, it was private mockery. No performance. No pretending. Just Fallon, being exactly who she was when I wasn't in the room. The next message was from Marcy, one of her bridesmaids, I think. We'd spoken a few times. She always seemed polite. Her message was short. Hey Emery. I'm sorry. I thought you should know. She told us from the start she was never serious. Said you were safe and good with money. She joked that marrying you was a retirement plan. I didn't laugh then. I'm definitely not laughing now. I sat in my car, stunned. I don't even remember how long. My hands just kept clenching and unclenching the steering wheel, like I was trying to hold on to something, anything solid. But the world had tilted. I wasn't just embarrassed. I was betrayed in layers I hadn't even seen. It wasn't about a single joke at a party. It was about everything I ignored. Every red flag I explained away. Every time she mocked something I loved, my quiet routines, my weird little hobbies, and I let it slide because I thought she was just playful. No, this wasn't love. This was convenience for her. A safe space to park until something better came along. I drove back to our apartment just before sunrise. She wasn't there. I didn't expect her to be. I packed a single bag, my laptop, a few clothes, and my grandfather's old leather journal. I left my keys on the kitchen table with a note that said nothing more than, "You don't need an anchor anymore. You're free. Enjoy Mexico." I didn't know where I'd go yet. I just knew I couldn't stay. But then, just as I zipped the bag and reached for the doorknob, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. "She's still lying. You need to know the truth about the guy from her gym. Check her camera roll." That's when I realized I hadn't seen the whole picture. And what came next would make everything before it looked like child's play. I had no plans to dig deeper. Honestly, after what happened at the party and the messages that followed, I thought I had enough closure to simply walk away. There was no point in replaying everything, no need to torture myself with more details. But that last message, "check her camera roll," hit something I couldn't ignore. It didn't come with a name, no introduction, no context. Just a breadcrumb, dropped at my feet. And like a fool, I picked it up. I didn't want to believe there was more to all this. A cruel toast, private mockery, using me for security, that was already enough to hollow a person out. But that text, it was like someone whispering, "You haven't seen the worst of it yet." Back in the apartment, I remembered the old tablet Fallon kept in the bottom drawer of her side table. She always said she hated how slow it was. Claimed she only used it to read recipes and store photos she didn't want cluttering her phone. I never once looked through it, because I trusted her. Even then, a part of me hesitated. This wasn't like me. I don't snoop. I'm not the type to pry. I like rules, structure, boundaries. But whatever innocence was left in me had been shattered the night before. The tablet still had charge. It lit up sluggishly and prompted for a passcode. I tried her birth date. Nope. Then the name of her cat from college. Nothing. On a frustrated whim, I typed in Mexico 2024. Unlocked. The gallery opened instantly. Dozens of folders. Some labeled. Some not. One just had a heart emoji. Another had the word warm-ups. Another, simply, Lola. I clicked on Lola. My heart sank. The photos started harmless. Fallon at the gym, Fallon in leggings, Fallon posing in front of mirrors. But then came the selfies. Not one she ever sent me. These were different. Intimate. Posing on a hotel bed. Wearing a man's shirt I didn't recognize. Her smile wasn't for me. Her eyes looked at someone else behind the camera. There were videos too. I didn't open those. I couldn't. I scrolled through image after image, trying to convince myself I was reading it wrong. That maybe this was old. Maybe it predated us. But then I saw him. The man. He appeared in a mirror reflection, blurry but unmistakably present. Short hair, a sleeve of tattoos down his left arm, and a necklace I'd seen before. Not in real life, but in her gym bag. I always thought it was hers. I remembered that once, about 6 months ago, Fallon had gone out of town for a wellness retreat. She told me no phones were allowed. She returned tan, rested, glowing in that way people do when they've been somewhere they didn't want to leave. When I asked her how it was, she brushed it off. Boring, she said. Too much yoga. But here was photographic proof she hadn't been bored. Or alone. The timestamps didn't lie either. Some were from that retreat. Others were more recent, right up until last week. And one video was dated 2 days before the party, the night before she begged me to go ring shopping. In the middle of all this madness, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Against better judgment, I answered. "Is this Emery?" a woman asked. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "My name's Krista. I was seeing the same guy Fallon was. The one with the tattoos. I found your number in a group message thread on her tablet. I didn't know you existed until last night. That's when it hit me. Fallon wasn't just cheating. She was cheating with a cheater. And I wasn't just humiliated. I had been unknowingly placed in the middle of someone else's lies too. It wasn't a triangle. It was a web. One Fallon had been spinning for months, maybe years. Krista told me things I can't repeat here. Not because they're explicit, but because they're humiliating. Fallon had lied about me to him too. Told him I was her roommate. Told him I was clinging, weird, boring. That I didn't even sleep in the same bed. She said she was only sticking around to secure a few financial things. I thanked Krista, though my voice cracked doing so. I hung up, and I sat on the floor in the middle of our bedroom, surrounded by the life I thought we were building. I had nothing left to doubt anymore. But I did have something left to do. The wedding was officially canceled, but Fallon didn't know it yet. And what I did next would finally flip the script she thought she was writing for me. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a second. I sat cross-legged on the cold hardwood floor, the old tablet beside me, her pictures still open, the glow of the screen mocking me. Every hour or so I'd look at the door like she might walk in, hungover and smiling, maybe ready to laugh the whole thing off again. But she didn't come home. Of course she didn't. By morning, I had already made my decision. I wasn't just walking away quietly anymore. Fallon had built this world where I was the idiot, the placeholder, the backup plan. And while I wasn't going to get revenge, I wasn't that kind of person. I was going to reclaim whatever dignity she hadn't stripped away. The first thing I did was call the venue. I canceled the booking. We were still within the refund window for a partial deposit, so I ate the loss. Whatever. Next was the photographer, then the florist, then the caterer. All gone. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I was just methodical. I think that scared me more than anything. How calm I'd become while my entire life was turning to ash. But the real moment came when I logged into the shared wedding website. Fallon had built it herself. Pages of carefully curated details. A countdown to the big day. Engagement photos of us posed in a field like we were characters from some dreamy indie romance. Bios she wrote that made me sound like a lovable nerd who had won her over with spreadsheets and patience. There was a tab titled, Our Story. I hovered over it for a long time before clicking. She had written a paragraph that described me as the kindest, most reliable man she'd ever met. Funny how reliable can be code for easily manipulated. I didn't delete the page. I edited it. I replaced the paragraph with something new. Not bitter. Not cruel. Just honest. Sometimes love is confused with comfort. Sometimes laughter hides disrespect. This wedding has been canceled. And if you're reading this and wondering why, it's because some things are meant to fall apart before they become a prison. I'm choosing peace. Then I hit publish. It felt like breathing for the first time in months. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. See, Fallon had planned a big RSVP push that weekend. She'd invited dozens of friends, family, even coworkers to a backyard wine tasting event. She had called it a pre-celebration, another excuse to soak in attention and pretend our lives were perfect. I had planned on skipping it, obviously. But after everything I'd learned, I realized something. I didn't have to run away. I could show up. On my terms. So I did. Saturday came. I dressed sharp. Nothing flashy, just the clean navy blazer she always said made me look competent. I arrived exactly on time, just as the small crowd began to gather under the rented white canopy in her parents' backyard. Fallon was at the center of it all, drink in hand, laughing like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't left the party in silence. Like the ring box I placed beside her glass never existed. She hadn't reached out to me once since that night. And yet here she was, smiling like she hadn't torched everything we were supposed to be. People noticed me. They turned. Some smiled politely. Others looked confused. Her mother's expression dropped the second she saw me. Fallon turned, saw me standing there near the welcome table, and her eyebrows shot up. She walked over, slowly, casually, like I was a guest arriving late. Didn't expect to see you, she said under her breath. I smiled. I figured I owed you one final RSVP. Her face twisted, confused. What are you talking about? I reached into my blazer and pulled out the printed copy of the updated wedding site page. I didn't say a word. I just handed it to her. She unfolded it. Read it. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. I stepped past her and walked up to the small group gathered near the hors d'oeuvres table. I cleared my throat. I didn't raise my voice, didn't make a scene. I just spoke clearly enough for the dozen or so people nearby to hear. I just wanted to thank you all for coming. I know you came expecting to celebrate something special, but I think it's important to be transparent. The wedding is canceled. The relationship is over. I wish Fallon the best in whatever comes next, but it won't be with me. There was a long silence. Then someone muttered, "Damn." Another awkward cough. People shifted uncomfortably. Fallon didn't move. I turned and walked back toward the gate. As I reached it, I heard someone call out, "Emery, wait." But I didn't stop. I kept walking. For once, I wasn't second-guessing myself. Not explaining. Not justifying. Just walking away from something that was never meant to be mine. But that night, Fallon did reach out. And what she said over the phone made my skin crawl. It was close to midnight when my phone lit up with her name. I had been lying in bed in a budget motel on the edge of town, trying to watch a rerun of something I wasn't really following. I stared at the screen for a long time, heart pounding, thumb hovering over decline. I should have ignored it. I should have blocked her days ago. But curiosity, maybe even weakness, got the better of me. I answered. She didn't say anything at first. Just breathed heavily into the line. I almost hung up. Then came her voice. Steady. Cold. "You humiliated me," she said. I blinked. "You mean like when you turned me into a living joke in front of your friends? Or when you told people I was your financial safety net?" "I never said that," she snapped. "That was twisted. Taken out of context." I wanted to laugh, but all I managed was a quiet, "You said it on camera, Fallon." There was silence. Then she lowered her tone. "Look, Emery, you think you've made your big dramatic exit, and now you get to walk away clean, right? Like you're the victim. Like you're noble. But you don't understand what you've actually done." "I canceled a wedding," I said. "That's all." "No," she said sharply. "You canceled a deal." That's when the tone shifted entirely. No longer angry, measured, controlled. Like she was trying to explain a business transaction that had gone off script. "You think I didn't know who you were?" "Of course I knew. That's why I picked you. You're careful. You're predictable. I needed someone to stabilize things while I worked out the rest." "The rest?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. "I was going to take care of you," she continued. "I wasn't just using you. I was building something. You're the guy who would have bought the house, paid off the car, kept the taxes filed. You were the infrastructure, the scaffolding. And in return, I'd give you a decent life. That was the deal, Emery." I felt sick. My mouth went dry. "You mean a deal I never knew I was part of?" "You're not dumb," she said. "You had to feel it. Somewhere deep down. You knew we weren't in love. You just didn't want to admit it. And neither did I. So we played the part. But then you had to go and throw a tantrum in front of my friends." I sat up, shaking now. "You stood in front of 20 people and ridiculed me. I was a joke in a room full of strangers." She didn't deny it. Instead, she exhaled slowly and said something I'll never forget. "You were never meant to be permanent. But you were supposed to last longer than this." The silence that followed was brutal. I felt like someone had punched a hole through my chest. And yet, somewhere in the horror of it, a piece of me finally felt validated. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I had been targeted. Carefully, methodically. I asked her, "So what now? You find another scaffold to build on?" Her response chilled me. "I already have." And then she hung up. I stared at my phone for a full minute before tossing it onto the bed like it was radioactive. I sat there in the dark motel room, surrounded by peeling wallpaper, a buzzing fridge, and the stench of something chemical in the air, realizing that everything I thought had broken had only just begun. Fallon wasn't hurt. She wasn't regretful. She wasn't mourning the loss of us. She was already moving on to the next Emery, the next fool who wouldn't see it coming. But I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. Not for her, not for my pride, not for anyone. The next morning, I made a call of my own. And that call triggered a chain reaction I never could have predicted. I didn't sleep after that call. Not even close. I lay flat on the stiff motel bed with my eyes wide open, feeling the ceiling press down like it knew what I just heard. Fallon's voice echoed through me. "You were the infrastructure. You were never meant to be permanent." I kept repeating the words over and over until they carved themselves into my skull. But somewhere inside all that pain, a strange clarity began to form. She was never going to apologize. Never going to reflect. She'd simply shift gears and continue the cycle, like I never existed. Like none of this meant anything. By morning, I knew exactly what I had to do. I wasn't looking for revenge. I still wasn't that guy. But if Fallon wanted to move on untouched, as if she hadn't caused real damage, then someone had to break that illusion. Not just for her, but for the people around her who still thought she was something she wasn't. I called her mother. I wasn't even sure what I was going to say. We'd spoken maybe 4 or 5 times since Fallon and I got engaged. Donna was always the polite, tightly smiling type, complimenting your haircut while eyeing your shoes like they weren't polished enough. She came from old money. Fallon liked to brag that her family had standards. She answered on the third ring. Hello. Donna, it's Emery. A pause. Oh, hello. I know it's early. I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't serious. There was a shift in her tone, that subtle tightening you hear when someone's reaching for social armor. What's happened? I told her everything. Not all the dirty details, but enough. The party. The speech. The canceled wedding. The photos on the tablet. The man with the tattoos. And finally, Fallon's late-night phone call. I didn't embellish. I didn't inject drama. I just laid it out, one agonizing brick at a time. There was a long, trembling silence on the line. Then she said, almost in a whisper, I warned her. What? I told her this would happen. I told her not to do it again. That froze me. Again. Fallon has always had a pattern, Donna said slowly. She latches onto people she believes can offer her stability. She plays the part until it becomes boring. Then she tests limits, pushes boundaries. And when it crumbles, she spins the story, makes it about the other person. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You knew. I didn't know about you, she said quickly. I hoped she'd changed. She told us this one was different. Said you were steady, kind. She even said you made her feel safe. I wanted to believe it. I felt a sharp knot twist in my chest. Why didn't you warn me? Donna sighed. Because when I tried before, with the last one, she shut us out for a year. Threatened to cut contact. Fallon's always been volatile when challenged. There was something broken in her voice. Not defensive. Not angry. Just tired. Like someone who had spent years trying to contain a wildfire with a garden hose. I'm sorry, Emery, she said at last. If I had known what she was doing, I would have intervened. But she has her secrets. Her way of keeping things compartmentalized. She doesn't let people close, not really. Not unless it benefits her. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me just wanted to hang up and crawl under a blanket and disappear. But Donna wasn't finished. I'll handle the family. You shouldn't have to explain yourself to anyone. I'll speak with her father, her aunts, everyone. We'll take care of it. I thanked her. Hung up. Then stared at the wall for a long time, feeling the weight of it all settle over me like wet cement. Fallon's entire life was a performance, and I had been another scene partner, rehearsed, replaced, forgotten. But the fallout had just begun. By the time I checked my phone again that afternoon, my inbox was filled with messages. Her cousins. Her maid of honor. 2 of her coworkers. People who had already seen the wedding site, who had heard from Donna, who wanted to know if it was true, who wanted to apologize. And then there was one message that made my stomach drop. It was from someone named Vaughn. You don't know me, but I know Fallon. I need to talk to you. In person. There's something you should see before she buries it. I didn't know who he was, but something told me he wasn't just another name on a long list. I didn't respond to Vaughn's message right away. I must have reread it 10 times, sitting there in the cramped motel room with the humming fridge and peeling wallpaper. The phrasing chilled me, before she buries it. That could mean anything. But after everything I'd already seen, I had no reason to believe Fallon wasn't capable of hiding something bigger. And if I'd learned anything in the last few days, it was this. Don't ignore the red flags just because you're too tired to deal with more pain. So I texted back. Where and when? His reply came within a minute. Public place. Tanglewood Cafe on 3rd. 5 p.m. I'll be in a gray jacket. Come alone. It sounded like something from a bad movie. But I went anyway. The place was familiar, Fallon, and I used to go there when we first started dating. She liked the atmosphere, said it felt artisanal without trying too hard. I remember she once told the barista to be more generous with the aesthetic when decorating her cappuccino. I should have known right then. I arrived early, sat at a table near the window, ordered black coffee I couldn't taste, and waited. Vaughn walked in 10 minutes later. Early 40s. Tall, fit, well-kept beard, and a face that looked like it had weathered a few too many disappointments. He spotted me, walked over, didn't bother with a handshake. You're Emery? He asked. I nodded. You're Vaughn. He sat down, dropped a manila folder on the table between us, and leaned back. I dated Fallon 3 years ago, he said. We were together for 7 months. I didn't know about the others until it ended. I didn't speak. I just listened. She told me I was everything she wanted, then disappeared. Ghosted me for 3 weeks. I thought something happened to her. When she finally answered, she told me she'd reconnected with someone from her past and needed to see where it led. That she never meant to hurt me, but she had to follow her heart. I bought it. He slid the folder closer to me. Until I found this. I opened it. Inside were printouts. Screenshots. Dozens of them. Fallon's messages to someone named Marcus. They were romantic. Graphic. Timestamped during the time Vaughn was still with her. She had saved Marcus' contact under a fake name, Ava from work, but the content gave it away. Pet names, hotel room numbers, promises. One of the screenshots even showed a message she sent to Marcus the same night she told Vaughn she was sick and couldn't come over. She used me as a cover, Vaughn said quietly. She told people we were getting serious, that I was the one pushing for more. I wasn't. I was just trying to keep up. I looked through more of the pages. Some were familiar. Fallon had used the exact same phrasing with me. You're the calm I never knew I needed. You make me feel safe. I'm building a life with you. It was like she had a script. But it got worse. The final page was a screenshot dated 3 weeks before our party. Fallon had messaged Marcus again, this time under a new contact name. The conversation made my stomach twist. Fallon, he's proposing soon. Marcus, and? Fallon, I'll accept. For now. It buys me more time. Marcus, you're playing with fire. Fallon, please. He doesn't even know how to read people. He's an accountant with a heartbeat. I closed the folder slowly. My vision blurred at the edges. She sent that while living with me, I whispered. Vaughn nodded. She doesn't think people like you or me matter. We're functions. Transitional chapters. She's always looking for the next page. I sat back, trying to breathe, trying to stay composed. A few people were watching us from nearby tables. I didn't care. Why show me all this? I asked. Because I wish someone had done it for me, he said. And because she's going to spin this. She always does. When you walked away, you became the villain in her version. She'll tell people you were controlling. Insecure. Cold. The wedding fell apart because of you. This, he tapped the folder. This is your proof. For when it starts. I thanked him. He left soon after. I stayed, staring at the manila folder like it was radioactive. Then, after 20 minutes, I took it back to the motel, sat on the edge of the bed, and cried for the first time since it all began. Not because of the betrayal, not even because of the manipulation, but because I finally understood that I had never actually known the woman I loved. She was a collection of borrowed lines and rehearsed mannerisms, shaped to fit the man in front of her. And once that man outlived his usefulness, she moved on. Like changing seasons. But even after everything, there was one last storm coming. Because Fallon had seen the updated wedding site. And now, she wasn't playing games anymore. She was ready for war. The email came just after noon the next day. Short subject line. You think you won? It was from Fallon, of course, and though I'd promised myself not to read anything more from her, I opened it. Maybe I needed to see how far she'd go. The message was venom dressed in lace. I hope you enjoyed your little moment, Emery. You think you're the victim? You humiliated me in front of family. You ruined my reputation. Do you even realize what you've done to my future? I trusted you not to be cruel. Guess I overestimated your spine. I will be talking to a lawyer about slander and defamation. Stay out of my life, or I swear, I'll make sure everyone sees the version of you I decide to write. I sat there frozen, blinking at the screen. A lawsuit? For walking away from a wedding? From a relationship she sabotaged from the start? That would have destroyed me months ago. But now, I just smiled. Because I wasn't that same man anymore. Instead of responding to her directly, I took the folder Vaughn gave me and the emails I'd received from other people she had wronged, and I compiled it all into a single document. Not for revenge. Not for public shaming. Just for clarity. For truth. I sent it to the lawyer I'd consulted when I canceled the venue contract. I wanted a record, just in case. Then, I wrote her one last reply. No emotion. No drama. Fallon, I'm not fighting you. There's nothing to fight over. You've made your choices, and now I'm making mine. I won't engage further. I've saved everything. If you pursue legal action, I'm prepared. I hope one day you get tired of building your life out of ashes. Emery. I hit send. Then I deleted every file, every message, every photo, every backup connected to her. I erased her from my devices, not out of rage, but for peace. Because I needed space to breathe again. And slowly, that space began to fill with light. Over the next few weeks, something strange happened. People started reaching out, not just with sympathy, but with their own stories. Her ex-coworker, one of her bridesmaids, A woman she had once conned into lending her money. I learned I wasn't alone. Fallon had left a trail. I had just been too close to see the smoke. I got a new apartment. Small, clean, quiet. I adopted a dog from the shelter. A floppy-eared mutt named Casper who snores louder than any animal I've ever heard. I started going to therapy. I began journaling again, something I hadn't done since college. I took long walks with no destination. I stopped trying to plan my way out of pain. Then, one evening, about 2 months later, I ran into someone from the wedding venue. A woman named Iris. She had been handling Fallon's side of the planning. We recognized each other at the same coffee shop Vaughn and I had met in. "I'm glad you got out," she said softly. "You knew?" I asked. She nodded. "We see more than you'd think." We talked for an hour. Then we talked again the next weekend. Then we kept talking. No pressure. No expectations. Just two people learning how to exist in a world that sometimes breaks you before it builds you. I'm not saying this is a love story. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it's a true story. And that's more than I ever had with Fallon. For the first time in a long time, I wake up with nothing to hide from. No ghost hovering beside me. No performance to match. Just me. That's the most peaceful thing I've ever known.